Selena are the same. Split right down the center.
Meow.
I'm ready, Max. I've been down here too long. It's time for me to ascend, to re-emerge.
On the second one, it was always the desire to kind of do something else, but still keeping the spirit of Batman. I mean, we wouldn't want to change it to where all of a sudden it was a completely different thing. But, you know, you're working with other writers, designers, actors, artists. You're not, myself included, don't want to just do the same thing. So everything was slightly redesigned or completely redesigned or rethought, but it's always trying to keep within some idea of the Batman that we first made.
Tim and I had talked about it. We figured we had this pretty well wired, you know, what I did, what I didn't do, what I needed to do, what I absolutely didn't need to do, what was better for me not to do. And we thought, well, this will actually be easy. This will be one of those where you just show up, you know, turn around, look into camera, and we'll kind of spray a little sweat on your face like you just beat up 5 guys and go home. It turned out it wasn't like that at all.
It did have a darkness and a complexity and a resonance that I think the audience at the times, a lot of people didn't expect. You know, it wasn't just kind of a fun, cool comic book movie. It was something more than that.
You didn't invite me, so I crashed!
Tim and I had several kind of loose conversations about where the movie would go with input from the studio. They really wanted the Penguin because they sort of saw the Penguin as the #2 Batman villain. We wanted to do Catwoman, so we wound up doing Penguin and Catwoman. And I did 2 drafts. It was a deal where the studio was now at the point where they wanted to proceed with the movie. And they said, Tim, come on, you gotta do it. You're gonna do it or not gonna do it. And Tim was very averse at the end of the day to the idea of coming in and doing a sequel because he thought he'd kind of, you know, look, I've shot my wad on Batman. I've said what I have to say about Batman. I don't really know if I want to do this. And he was very reluctant to get involved. And finally, the way that they kind of got to him was to say, well, what if the second movie is really just a Tim Burton movie? And that kind of got his attention and got him thinking about what he could do with it again. You know, how extreme could you go with the Penguin? How extreme could you go with Catwoman? What if you didn't have to worry about, you know, sort of the fidelity to the mythology, all of that kind of stuff like that?
I wouldn't have done it right after the first one because that was like the last thing you'd want to do was to go right into another one of those. So I did Edward Scissorhands after Batman, which was nice, sort of different kind of experience, which was great. But then I was still intrigued by the other characters, you know, like the Catwoman, you know, came to mind right away because that's next to the Joker. That was probably my favorite second villain in the piece. And then that got us to thinking about, well, the Penguin. You know, you could find the psychological profile of Batman, Catwoman, Joker, but the Penguin was just this guy with a cigarette, and a top hat, you know, and didn't really, what is he? So, but then started thinking about, you know, Catwoman, Batman, sort of this animal people, and Penguin, and started to think about him, tried to find a profile for him, and so it was fun to kind of come up with the sort of bad freak, you know, but again, that duality of somebody who's been sort of wronged and you know, has that sort of split not like dark, but sort of human animal, you know, and sort of using the animal motif as a strong image for the film. And then I started to get excited about it.
Well, once we decided, you know, that Tim was going to direct the sequel, you know, we jumped right in with the script. So it was, I mean, it was challenging. It was not an easy screenplay to develop.
Most of the stuff that I had done for that movie wound up being scrapped. And the decision that came out of that was just basically to go with pretty much a whole new direction with the story.
Tim and I never had a conversation about like, what are fans of the comic book going to think? What are the people going to think? What are the sponsors who, you know, have promotions connected to the movie going to think of this movie? We never had those conversations. We never thought about it. I mean, we were really just about the art. We surprisingly got very little directives from the studio, like you must have, Robin, and there was none of that really. I think we did try it. We did try something, and Tim was big on not making a big deal about it. Like we wanted to work in maybe a Robin character. I could tell he was not enthusiastic about it from the get-go. But we wanted more of a thing where it was kind of like something that would be hinted at and then developed in a later movie.
At some point, there was a discussion of Robin, and again, the only way I could see it was to try and find a profile that worked. But what ended up happening was, again, I think at the end of it all, we just realized we had too many characters, and you know, people even complain, even without Robin, they complain that there maybe is too many characters, you know, and always with, you know, there was always the idea that the third or fourth, or, you know, I mean, at this point, I think Warner saw it as a potentially ongoing thing, maybe, and therefore, you know, there was always that, well, if we don't do it in this one, they'll do it in the next one kind of deal.
You know, what Tim is able to do is make characters that are mythic. He is able to connect with them on an emotional level and make them real and grounded, so that even though they seem to be, you know, otherworldly or larger than life, their emotions are real and relatable.
More than any other person who's interpreted Batman, that I really think that Tim Burton has the most in common with Batman.
I remember hearing things like, oh, you know, in the first movie, you know, the Joker stole the show, and in the second movie, you know, he's hardly in it. It's all the Catwoman and Penguin, and I always felt that those people, for me, were missing the point of the character of Batman. You know, what he is. That's why I didn't like Robin involved, just because this guy wants to remain as hidden as possible and in the shadows as possible and unrevealing about himself as possible. So, you know, all of those things, you know, he's not going to eat up screen time by these big speeches and doing, you know, dancing around the Batcave, you know. I always felt he was in at the right amount and the right sort of level of him.
Hey, Mark. Okay. And action!
We really wanted Michael Keaton to be Batman and Bruce Wayne again. I mean, you know, it's always hard, I think, for an actor to commit to playing the same character over and over again. They have to feel confident that they have something more to bring, you know, to the character. And, you know, Michael definitely struggled with that and questioned it, which I think was good. You know, it pushed us to really make sure that the character, you know, reached the level of the first movie.
I think Michael was game for it. I think he was probably game for it the same reason I was, which is, you know, he'd done the character and got to kind of revisit it with other actors and other people, other situations. So, you know, I think that was probably the lure for him. I don't think it was the joy of climbing back into the suit, you know, but I think it was for those reasons probably.
The only challenge I thought of before I started was the mere fact that I had never done a character twice. So I was interested in doing that. What I hadn't anticipated was, I was into my second or third day, I realized something seemed a little off, and what I think I was doing was imitating myself. You're playing the same character, so I had to keep thinking, well, I played this character, so what does he do here? And I excluded any other possibilities. So once I found myself saying, okay, this seems like what he would do here, but it doesn't sound right and it doesn't feel very right. So I found myself kind of doing an impersonation of myself, which was, first of all, impossible, and second of all, really strange. And so I just dropped that and said, no, you gotta just open up like it's the first time and just trust that, you know, the character will be there, I guess.
It was really fun, you know, casting this movie. What a dream come true to have to cast the Penguin and Catwoman in one movie, you know? And I think everybody always just automatically said Danny DeVito's a Penguin. Who else is going to be the Penguin?
There was a piece in the paper. Somebody said, wouldn't it be cool if Danny played the Penguin? And I looked at it and went, wow, you know, I never thought about that. That's how I sort of got introduced to it.
Danny was the first and only choice for that. There was no question about it.
And action, Danny.
Tim creates that great atmosphere, that world of, like, where you feel like everything is an invention. Tim did a painting that he gave me. It was very colorful, kind of circus tent, and there was a boy sitting in front of it. That was Oswald as a toddler. He didn't have hands. He had, you know, flippers, and he was kind of rotund and small, and he had kind of a weird pointed features, and the caption read, "My name is Jimmy, but they call me the hideous penguin boy." It was a great image to start from.
He kind of became the character and was the Penguin throughout the movie, on and off the set.
He stays in character all the time, and it's really creepy.
I really got to eat a lot of raw fish. It was great. I always liked sushi, but this was really spectacular. Raw and cold and just fresh. Tasty. They were really good. God, my mouth is watering. What time is it?
I mean, if somebody put their fingers too close to his mouth, he might just take it off.
Electroshock therapy. What a bargain.
We initially had cast Annette Bening as Catwoman, and you know, did wardrobe things and all sorts of fittings and stuff. And really close to shooting, I got a call one morning, and you know, sort of a long pause on the phone, and she, you know, said she was pregnant, and I was like I've never had like such a split mixed feeling in my life. I was like very extremely happy for her, and then just like dropping down a dark abyss at the same time.
And it was kind of a crazy period, because I would say every single actress from 20 to 45 on the planet wanted to be Catwoman, and we were kind of barraged.
Sean Young, who had originally been set to play the lead in the first picture, wanted very much to do the Catwoman, and she appeared in cat costume one day at the studio.
I thought that it would work to be sort of like aggressive, in the sense that that's what Catwoman would have done. She would have just gone, "Rawr," and she would have gone in there, and that's just what I did. I did like a major kind of Catwoman adventure.
The next thing I knew, my office door flew open, which tells you about the difference in security these days. And Michael Keaton and I saw Sean Young dressed as Catwoman leap over my sofa and say, "I am Catwoman." We looked at each other and went, whoa.
I was only told about it. But the eyewitnesses, I believe. I don't think it was a UFO sighting or, you know, the legend of Bigfoot kind of a situation. I think the resources are fairly reliable.
When Michelle Pfeiffer expressed an interest, something just clicked, where we thought, you know, she's perfect. She also could be both Selina Kyle and Catwoman.
I met with Tim, and I found him very unusual and interesting, and he explained the part to me. And I thought it would be a couple of scenes and probably, you know, not a fully developed character. Then to my surprise, I read the script and I found she was just very, actually more complicated than I could have even imagined, just sort of psychologically. And even now people say to me, now, is she a bad guy or is she a good guy? And the reason that is because the character always was kind of going from one side to the other. And I think that she was always good at heart, but was always running astray.
Well, I tried to lick her, but they didn't put that in. The Penguin is very interested in getting close to that pussycat.
The movie was very much shot out of sequence. So it was a challenge to know where I was half the time. And also, it's real ensemble, so every scene, every moment counts. You don't have a whole movie to develop a whole character, so it was actually one of the most challenging roles I've done.
I wanted to talk to her about it before we started, because I kind of wanted to warn her about what she was in for, but I didn't, and I could only offer sympathy, really, you know, and because there's no suggestion. You can't say, well, you know, here's the way I deal with this kind of picture.
She was very impressive. I mean, two things that impressed me extremely was when the cats were kind of bringing her back to life, her sort of eye flutter and her eyes opening up. I still find that really chilling and amazing. And then that moment where, you know, she put a live bird in her mouth and held it there for several seconds and then let it fly out. I mean, I don't know too many people that would do that. She did it several times. And no bird or person was injured.
Here, look at this. Bob Kane. Excellent.
Penguin, Catwoman, Joker. It's an early one.
The Joker, the Penguin,
Robin, Batmobile.
The thing that changed from the first to the second was that whole dynamic of the franchise mentality. And so unlike the first one, before I start the second one, you know, toy companies and t-shirt makers and you know are asking, well, what's this character going to look like? I was having these meetings where, you know, I was like, well, we haven't designed the character yet.
You know, the prep of this film was pretty enormous. Just the set of Gotham City, you know, detailed, beautiful, stylistic set. Bo Welch did an amazing job on this sort of neo-expressionistic, Germanic city that had such character and really was a character in the movie. And, you know, we wanted it to be winter and Christmas and to actually snow inside the soundstage.
The challenge is to create the atmosphere that this is going to be in, and that was about air conditioning sound stages down to a certain temperature and getting the breath and also creating an atmosphere for these real penguins.
The second one was more difficult in the sense that we had weather conditions. You know, we had to cool down the sets for the penguins. So, you know, we were in like 100-degree weather, you know, people in shorts in LA, and we're coming out of the stages in parkas and snow gear, you know, and we have 3 people in full, you know, costume, makeup, you know, and dealing with all of that stuff. But again, you know, it's the actors and the people that keep you going, really.
What was fun about working with Tim was he actually was improvisational about his direction. And he actually did respond to what the actors brought to the space in rehearsal.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a cookbook approach to the shooting of it. His way of covering a scene wasn't conventional. It wasn't like close-ups, over-the-shoulder shots, matching sizes. He did have a sense of how he wanted it edited, and there weren't that many choices. Really couldn't cut it like a dozen different ways because it wasn't covered that way.
In the morning, I was sort of like on this assembly line, and I would be handed from one person to the next, and I felt like I was in Oz. Just my character was such a huge production every day. And it's not even to say what's going on with Danny, what's going on with Michael, what's going on with the set. You know, they're moving buildings around, and I would get lost on the stage all the time because I would walk and they would have moved everything around, and I could never find my way to the set. That's never happened to me before.
The first couple days, it was really fun to watch the expression on Danny DeVito's and Michelle's faces because they just looked absolutely lost. And it was kind of like sadistically funny to me because I knew exactly what they were going through.
We tried to keep it so that Oswald was not just exposed to everybody on the set, on the lot, so they had this little thing. Tim made a kind of a canopy with the art department that I'd travel to the set in this little kind of circus canopy. It was good because you could stay in character. You could just be Oswald, and everybody respected Oswald. They kept their distance, but the crew and the other members of the cast and everybody was really, into it, and they were very respectful.
About every 15th day that's usually where it rolls around with me, that I'm just kind of standing there waiting, and I kind of look at what everybody's wearing. I look at myself, and it gets really tremendously absurd. You kind of step outside yourself and you realize this is really nuts what we're doing, and really kind of goofy. It's really a strange experience, and instead of kind of saying, I've made an enormous mistake here, you just gotta kind of laugh and say, well, here we go. It was more fun to see two other people do it, because at first, I looked at Jack and, reminded him now and then we were both grown men doing this. He just wanted to check in every once in a while. But this time I figured, hey, if I go down, I'm going down with two other people. So, we're all going down in dumb suits.
Felt like Elvis walking into Caesar's.
Yeah, I mean, people would start to laugh, but it would be for different reasons. Some reasons would be just the absurdity of it. I think some of it was just exhaustion and, insanity. But it was easier for me to laugh because I'm looking at him from the outside, looking at the whole thing. And so sometimes I'd start laughing, and they probably thought, what am I laughing about? It's not funny, Why don't you get in this costume? But there was some catching themselves in the mirror and seeing what was going on kind of thing. But to their credit, they always kept it, they found the right level of keeping it real and finding the humor when it was there.
I had an experience with a monkey, which was like harrowing. We were doing the scene in the lair when Batman sends a note with this little kind of rhesus monkey. We were doing this rehearsal, and the monkey's coming down, and the monkey's got the note, and the trainer's there, and he says, you better, go over and, get the note from the monkey. I go over to the monkey, and I take the note. And he hands me the note. And I give it to the trainer, and the trainer gives it back, and they say, okay, this is fine, we can shoot. Now I get into character. Oswald it's not me going over, be gentle with the monkey. I see a monkey come down, and I start walking over with a note, right? And the monkey comes halfway down, sees me, and goes berserk, and we did it again. We went back and, did it again. And the monkey got kind of used to me, and, we're very friendly now. The monkey and I, we spent last weekend at Shutters at the beach.
Obviously, I like the fact that there's no pre-sound. It's just, keep the shock of the explosion there.
In terms of the post-production of the movie, it was really kind of scary because we had a summer release date. You have to release these movies in the summer. We had a very tight schedule, and this was, 13 years ago now. We were in production, and, it was before computerized editing. It was before all these, CGI techniques that we have today. It was very different time in terms of making a special effects movie. And it was kind of touch and go for a few weeks there. Would we get the film ready? But, we pulled it off. We pulled it off almost to the last minute.
There was one shot at the end that I think cost like $250,000, and we had to do it on a weekend with the Catwoman, keeping her alive. I think it was something like that at the end. It was a studio note.
I remember saying, I don't think it can be done in the meeting. We'll try. And then it was a flurry of phone calls after that. Literally, it was the next day or even that afternoon that we got a Catwoman suit out of storage and put it on somebody and actually shot. Yeah, it was that quick. It was like a nightmare.
Always these big Hollywood movies, you're, riding to the end of the thing. And I just decided to put that in because it just felt right. Something about it, you know, not a big deal, but just a kind of a little question about things. And I don't know, since I'd ended the last one with Batman up there's something about something ending with somebody else up there since he was down there, you know, and like the whole thing about cats and the whole 9 lives thing and this sort of mystical quality of cats, and is it real, is it, you know, is there a slight supernatural aspect to cats and things like that, you know, it sort of seemed to fit the material.
You know, when you put these things together, you don't really know what it's about. You're looking at the trees and not always the forest, and that's the big challenge in what we do. So when it's finally together, especially with Tim's movies, who is really, because he comes from an animation background, he more has a clearer idea of what the end result is, compared to a lot of directors who are very talented but find their way to that end.
I know I've seen the movie with audiences much more than Tim has. That, like, I actually go to, like, a lot of the theaters, and it was always great. The lights coming up after Batman Returns, and it was like, you know, kids crying, you know, people acting like they'd been punched in the stomach and like they'd been mugged. But, you know, part of me relished that reaction, and part of me, like, to this day, like, oops, you know.
One person would come in and go, oh, this is so much lighter than the first movie. And the next person would come in and go, oh, this is so much darker than the first movie. And it's like, well, light and dark are, you know, they're opposites. So it's like, how can something be, and it was like 50% passionately one way, passionately the other. And I thought, this is an odd dynamic. This is quite interesting.
I remember, like, one write-up, I think it was in the USA Today, that basically panned the movie and said it looked like it was shot in an inkwell, which I guess is really a compliment, you know. But at the same time, I don't know that I took it as a compliment. I took it as really kind of a criticism or a put down of the movie, because I don't think it came out to generally good reviews. Even though it was the #1 movie, but a lot of people accused the storyline not being developed or meaningful in some kind of way. So I thought it was a bit misunderstood.
I did hear of somewhat of a backlash, that it was too gross, you know, we can't have black stuff coming out of his mouth.
The movie itself, apart from, you know, being a merchandising machine, you know, apart from all the toy sales that it's supposed to generate, the movie itself was never presented as, you know, a child-friendly movie. And so I just think it's a mistake of perception. I think, you know, the parents who complained just got it wrong. But there was no attempt to deceive anyone.
I really dig the fact that even now I can, you know, kids come up to me, and if they don't know that I played the Penguin, once they do, you know, they're really, you know, charmed by it and taken by it. So you get into that kind of milieu of it all, and you say, yeah, it's great to be part of it. I'm really happy to be part of the Batman family.
I remember toying with the idea of doing another one, and I remember going into Warner Brothers and having a meeting. I'm going, you know, we could do this, we could do that, and they go like, Tim, don't you want to do like a smaller movie now, you know, just something that's more, and like about, you know, half hour into the meeting, I go, you don't want me to make another one, do you? And they go, no. And I just said, no, I know you did. And so we just stopped it right there.
You know, when you're a director like Tim and you have so many stories to tell and you're so visionary, I mean, can you do the same character over and over again? I think we all knew that, you know, Tim had other places to go and other films to make. Would have been great for the audience because he would have made a lot of great Batman movies. But we wouldn't have had, you know, all these great films that he's made since then.
Gotta fly!
something wrong?
I am an animal! It's Penguin!
I am Catwoman.
What are you?
Batman.
You know who he is. Welcome to Gotham, a city that has been strangely quiet since the dark Avenger of the Night, Batman, ended the Joker's reign of terror. However, lately, there have been news sightings that have been nagging the metropolis. As I was saying, there have been sightings of a beautiful woman with a mask, a whip, and a stunning black outfit, and a mysterious penguin creature with revenge on its mind. Just when we need him most, Batman returns.
Tonight, an exclusive first look at the making of this summer's epic adventure, Batman Returns, starring Michael Keaton as the Caped Crusader.
I thought this was going to be kind of a breeze. It turned out it wasn't like that at all.
Danny DeVito as the evil Penguin.
Who can hate a penguin?
Here, kitty, kitty, kitty.
Yeah.
And Michelle Pfeiffer as the sensuous but deadly Catwoman.
Good at heart, but was always running astray.
We go behind the scenes with director Tim Burton, the man who took the comic book creation of Bob Kane and made him a movie star. Now, Burton creates a brand new Batman adventure with new sets and incredible new toys. It's the story of one legendary hero, 2 notorious villains, and 3 Hollywood stars.
Good evening. I'm Robert Urich. Tonight, the adventure continues with the Bat, the Cat, and the Penguin. In Batman Returns, the dark driving force is still Batman himself.
It's kind of fun to play such an enormous, heroic character. I thought this was going to be kind of a breeze because Tim and I had talked about it. We figured we had this pretty well wired, you know, what I did, what I didn't do, what I needed to do, what I absolutely didn't need to do, what was better for me not to do. And we thought, well, this will actually be easy. This will be one of those where you just show up, you know, turn around, look in the camera, and have spray a little sweat on your face like you just beat up 5 guys and go home. And it turned out it wasn't like that at all. In fact, in a lot of ways, this was harder because I found myself kind of doing an impersonation of myself, which was, first of all, impossible. Second of all, really strange. And so I just dropped that and said, no, you gotta just open up like it's the first time and just trust that, you know, the character will be there, I guess.
He's a very strange character because he's a character that likes to remain in the shadows, has a real split personality. He's fairly remote and conflicted. So in the first movie, I think we were really exploring that, and I felt like we arrived at it at the end, really. So I feel, and I think Michael feels the same way. And
you actually feel really good and comfortable.
More comfortable so that we can take this foundation and maybe explore it a little bit deeper.
So I was interested in doing that.
To destroy Batman, we must first turn him into what he hates the most. Namely us.
Doctors have spent years trying to analyze these characters, so I mean, you know, we'll do the best we can in 2 hours, but there's lots to explore with it.
Who are you? Who's the man behind the bat? Maybe you can help me find the woman behind the cat. Saved by kitty litter.
It's not a sequel. It's not a sequel in the sense it doesn't sort of pick up necessarily where one left off kind of a thing.
And action!
The point is to make it feel fresh and make it feel exciting and new and still be Batman.
You missed.
Yeah, Alfred.
Go to number 4.
Hey, look at go for the phone.
Does it look funny on the phone?
I think that seems weirder.
That does.
I've never done this. You want to see what when you're not out doing this.
And if you're just being normal, you know what I mean?
Just acting normal, throw a glove up, kind of be winded.
Yeah, and then, see, in one case, maybe it's good, Michael, that it's a little, that it's like you're being normal.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's what I think is kind of weirdly great about it.
Alfred, bring me some antiseptic ointment, would you?
Coming.
In presenting a characterization as unusual as Batman's, even the smallest scenes demanded the detailed attention of Keaton and Burton, and the lighter moments were a welcome break in the complexity and pressure of a massive 6-month shooting schedule.
I'm beat. Pushed.
The story of Batman Returns.
It was really fun to watch the expression on Danny DeVito's and Michelle's face.
I've never worked on a film this big before.
In the movie, the Penguin tries a hostile takeover of Gotham City.
I was pumped.
The mysterious Catwoman,
Actually more complicated than I could have even imagined.
tries to sink her claws into Batman.
And my claws were getting stuck and everything.
Meanwhile, Bruce Wayne is attracted to a strangely familiar woman.
I think this guy probably goes big when he goes.
And so does the Penguin.
Likes her, lusts after her.
But this cat isn't looking for dates.
About every 15th day, that's usually where it rolls around with me, that I'm just kind of standing there waiting, and I kind of look at what everybody's wearing. I look at myself, and it gets really tremendously absurd. You know, when you kind of step outside yourself and you realize this is really nuts what we're doing. You just gotta kind of laugh and say, well, here we go.
When we come back from the rooftops of Gotham, the perfect enemy for Batman comes to life.
You know, also the whip is really lethal.
For 5 decades, Batman has battled evil in Gotham. Now there are 2 fresh villains lurking in the shadows, waiting. One is seductively beautiful, lethally dangerous. You never know where she'll appear out of the shadows. And like Michelle Pfeiffer, who portrays this lady of mystery, she is a force to be reckoned with.
People say to me, now, is she a bad guy or is she a good guy? Good at heart, but was always running astray. Yeah. No pun intended. I thought it would be a couple of scenes and probably, you know, not a fully developed character. But I didn't care. I would have done it anyway because it's a kind of idol from my childhood. Then to my surprise, I read the script and I found her to be very interesting and very complicated, sort of psychologically. And actually quite a challenge as an actress. I am Catwoman. Hear me roar.
She starts out as as a fairly normal person.
Ew, kitty, 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 kitty.
She suffers being in a man's world and all of the
suppressed rage,
the torture that goes along with
being a woman.
Catwoman comes in? What do you think it's on my mind?
Down, Oswald.
Parcheesi?
I wouldn't touch you to scratch you.
She's basically somebody who's driven to do something.
Discovering just how lethal she can be and just sort of what she wants to destroy.
One of the things Catwoman wants to destroy is Shrek's department store, which is owned by an evil, scheming mega millionaire who also just happens to be the boss of Secretary Selena Kyle, Catwoman's dual identity. And Catwoman's tool for this destruction? The bullwhip.
Anthony, the longest. He was a great teacher.
I'm Michelle Pfeiffer's whip trainer and choreographer. Most people, have a tendency to raise their eyebrow when you say whip. The trick about it is traveling faster than the speed of sound. I'm breaking the sound barrier. So there is a certain hazard to it because it can cut skin, it can break bones. She is doing things with the whip that will make Indiana Jones green. That 90% of the people who do this for a profession can't do.
In this scene, Catwoman wants to whip off the heads of 4 mannequins, and Michelle's 3 months of training really paid off. she performed this difficult and potentially dangerous scene perfectly on the very first take.
Action, Michelle.
Michelle was doing the weirdest things in this movie in terms of things that she had to do. A couple hours to put this makeup, put this costume. Now come and use this whip, you know. Here, put this bird in your mouth.
Nice birdie. No, I don't think I've worn any rubber suits in any other movies.
It's just all really fun.
She's luscious. She's beautiful. She should be mine.
One thing with the black rubber, it almost looks liquid on the body. I mean, she looks like she's wearing black glass. I mean, it's incredibly beautiful. And when you get someone who can really move, like a cat, which Michelle can, it's very fluid looking. It doesn't look like clothes.
I don't know whether to open fire or fall in love.
She's a very feline creature, and she starts identifying with the cats and then literally makes herself a homemade cat suit. We wanted it to be tight to the body and sexy, and that's an obvious area to go into. I mean, especially with someone like Michelle Pfeiffer, who's, you know, got legs for days. And, you know, you want to expose all those wonderful limbs and everything.
The first time I put the outfit on, I thought, I can't walk, I can't breathe, I can't hear, I can't act like this. And that's how I felt. It took me a long time to get used to all of the elements.
She's so talented. There was never any question in my mind that not only was she going to be really terrific in this, but she was going to figure out how to do this.
She's wasting her time with that bozo on the hill.
When I saw her, the immediate impression I got is that she's a great match with Michael Keaton. I mean, they're just, you know, there's 4 great eyes there, you know, between the two of them. And that's very important to these characters, is what comes through.
He sees himself in this woman. And there are points where, if you really want to examine it, they almost lose themselves in each other.
You got kind of a dark side, don't you?
No darker than yours, Bruce. It was a challenge. It was actually one of the most challenging roles I've done. The thought of busting Batman makes me feel all dirty.
Next up, we meet the Penguin.
He is, without a doubt, one of the most evil characters that I've ever encountered in my life.
Danny DeVito, when the Bat, the Cat, and the Penguin continues. Underneath Gotham streets lurks a twisted creature with a brilliant mind and an umbrella full of evil tricks. He also has an aquatic army of helpers that wreak havoc on unsuspecting Gotham. He's the Penguin, neither human nor foul, a character that's graphically brought to life by a man whose persona is larger than life, Danny DeVito.
The name is Oswald Cobblepot.
I get around mostly by foot in my network of tunnels, but I have been known to ride in a duck. But he is, without a doubt, one of the most evil characters that I've ever encountered in my life.
Right now, my troops are fanning out across town.
50 years ago, Bob Kane introduced perhaps the most unusual Batman villain of all, a dapper little fellow named Oswald Cobblepot, also known as the Penguin.
When I created the Penguin in the comic strip, I thought he was comical looking.
When I was a kid, I read the comic books.
He looked so unvillainous.
You have kind of an image of this Penguin character already.
The Penguin looks like a cute little fella.
But just get that right out of your mind, because this is so totally unique and different, especially coming from this man.
In the comics, I thought that was one of the characters that had the least amount of a foundation psychologically. It was more just a funny-looking man, as far as I could tell. But we're making him the Penguin.
Unlike the comic book, Burton and DeVito have created a tragic, strangely deformed creature with a brilliant mind. He was abandoned by his parents, raised by penguins, and now lives in the sewer.
I
Flanked by an army of loyal penguins, he embarks on a diabolical plan to destroy Gotham City and...
Batman.
I've never planned anything like this before.
I am an animal!
This is from the bowels of I don't know where.
Cold-blooded!
I've never explored this in my life.
I don't think there's anybody any better making the horrible acceptable.
You're the coolest role model a young person could have.
And you're the hottest young person a role model could have.
I just feel like a real kindred spirit with Danny. I mean, somebody who just has a certain take on things which I feel very close to.
Director Tim Burton is also an artist, and his drawing of the Penguin became the blueprint for the look of the character. And to achieve the original look, DeVito endured a 3-hour makeup routine.
It's this cold, clammy glue. It would just go, you know, right? Just like that, and then all in here, you know what I mean? Yeah. That was the only moment. That's like walking into the water, you know, really cold. You know,
You take big leaps in your character, you know. So when I would look at him, I was kind of envious sometimes because I knew you could really kind of get locked away and just go for it.
It's really creepy. I was frightened. He handed me one of his slimy little flippers, you know. And he looked at me. That was it. I said, bye. Also, he stays in character all the time.
I loved it. You know, I just loved it.
That'll be another hour, Danny. It's that penguin thing, you know?
For the Penguins Commando Army, Burton needed a battalion of live trained penguins.
What we've trained the birds to do is to come to a call, a whistle. We've trained them to wear their little missiles in their little hats. When they get to where they're going, they each get a fish.
Come on, guys. Hurry up. Come on.
This is Lucy. She's been trained to wear these harnesses. She's been acclimated to this for about 4 weeks. She's worn wardrobe in the past. They don't mind it. It's part of the deal for them. The stages that we're working on are cooled to 45, 50 degrees. The qualifications were, if you were a penguin and you were available, you had the job.
Penguins. My babies. It was great working with the penguins. I had tons of penguins. Tons. Who can hate a penguin?
The time has come to punish all of Gotham!
I rule the birds.
Well, maybe not all the birds. To supplement the live penguins, Burton asked the makeup effects master Stan Winston, who won Oscars for Aliens and Terminator 2, to create penguin robots.
We are duplicating life so that we can get some performance out of a creature that otherwise would not be able to perform. If we do our job correctly, you should not be aware that these are not real penguins. Are you talking to me? Are you looking at me?
The special effects technology that was utilized to create the illusion of real life also created the penguin's trademark weapon of choice.
They're very helpful. I can fly with my umbrellas. I can roast you like a marshmallow.
What is that supposed to hypnotize me?
No. Just give you a splitting headache.
All of these characters, Batman, Catwoman, Penguin, there's a split with all of them. It was with the Joker also. And I think that's the most interesting thing about all of these characters. What they want to be versus what they are. And what they look like versus what they think they look like. You just get all the emotions of humor, horror, sadness, drama, absurdity, and reality all at once.
Tragic irony or poetic justice? You tell me.
This stage right here, stage 16 on the Warner Brothers lot, is one of the biggest sound stages in the world. This, along with 12 other stages in Hollywood, was filled with spectacularly unique sets depicting the world of Gotham. Well, to create this new look, Tim Burton assembled a world-class team of creative artists and technicians. And the result is all sorts of wonderful new toys.
So we have a new and improved Batarang. We have a new Bat ski boat. And we have the Batmobile.
It's a vision that we all remember. The Batmobile rocketing down the streets of Gotham to face the perils of yet another deadly encounter. Hey, and no speed limit.
Tim created his own world for this movie. We didn't use anything from the real world. Everything takes place on the planet of Gotham City. And that's what movies should do. Gee, I forgot about all my problems for 2 hours. I just went to another place and I had a lot of fun.
For over 50 years, we have thrilled to the exploits of this mortal man who somehow accomplishes superhuman deeds. As he fights for justice against the evil forces, we are right there with him. And our children see what we saw growing up, a hero. As long as we have our imagination and a little fantasy, we will have Batman. Good night from Gotham City. Yeah, I gotta ride home.